Let's talk a little bit about Syria at this point. We don't know what's going on. I feel, it's interesting. And, I've been obviously not had in my normal routine of watching hours and hours of cable news. But it appears to me, at the very least, that the prospect of bombing Syria now is different. The way that it's been addressed in the media is slightly different than it was a year ago, frankly, in the hours before we bombed Syria.
A bit more skeptical.
It's a bit more skeptical, and it seems like there is actually some critical thought about, okay, what is there going to be a strategy? Like, does not seem to be. I mean, I guess to the extent that Trump has articulated one, the only thing that he has articulated is that we should leave Syria, and then I don't know, I guess has changed its mind, or it's not quite clear on that, but. There just seems to be, I sense, a little bit more skepticism. And here is Jeffrey Sachs on Morning Joe making the argument that it is time to get out of Syria. And, I don't know what theoretically is supposed to happen if we bomb Damascus and then say, and incidentally, we're leaving. I mean, what? Other than just creating more suffering on top of the already suffering, what do we create there? But here's Jeffrey Sachs.
So Jeffrey Sachs, chime in. This is very different than just a war between two countries. This is as convoluted as it gets and could get out of control. I don't think people might really conceptualize, maybe even not this president, how out of control this could escalate.
It's true. But I think we have to step back and not put this in partisan terms. This is a U.S. mistake that started 7 years ago. And I remember the day on your show when President Obama said, Assad must go. And I looked at you and Joe and I said, how's he going to do that? Where's the policy for that?
Right. And
we know they sent in the CIA to overthrow Assad. The CIA and Saudi Arabia together in covert operations tried to overthrow Assad. It was a disaster. Eventually it brought in both ISIS as a splinter group to the jihadists that went in. It also brought in Russia. So we have been digging deeper and deeper and deeper. What we should do now is get out and not continue to throw, not have a confrontation with Russia. 7 years has been a disaster under Obama, continuing under Trump. This is what I would call the permanent state. This is the CIA, this is Pentagon, wanting to keep Iran and Russia out of Syria, but no way to do that. And so we have made a proxy war in Syria. It's killed 500,000 people, displaced 10 million. And I'll say predictably so, because I predicted it 7 years ago that there was no way to do this and that it would make a complete chaos. So what I would plead to President Trump is get out, like his instinct told him, by the way. That was his instinct. But then all the establishment, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Pentagon, everybody said, no, that's irresponsible. But his instinct is right. Get out. We've done enough damage, 7 years. And now we really risk a confrontation with Russia that is extraordinarily dangerous.
Now, if I understand what he's saying, and I have to say that 7 years ago on Dylan Ratigan's show, I was making the same argument that there's nothing that we can do that is good. But if I understand what he's saying, he's claiming that the entire, the first vestiges of anti-Assad I guess, protests or rebellion were inspired by the CIA.
I don't know. I don't know if he's
that.
actually saying that, but I totally disagree with that. If that's what he's stating, I don't.
Yeah, that was not my understanding. Now I do believe that there has been significant reporting, and it's understood that the CIA was sending weapons in after the initial, I guess, attempts.
When things turned violent, the CIA basically worked with the Gulf states, and they funded the people they usually fund, which are right-wing Sunnis. And and the Assad regime had already destroyed the Syrian left. Could I just say two quick things on this? One is I do think we could do and should maintain some type of presence in Rojava and to support the Kurds. I think there's obviously always that more could be done for refugees and humanitarian. And it seems to me that number three, what I think they're actually doing, and I don't think this is Trump's strategy, but I think even like kind of French and British, sources have sort of sent these signals that it's like, and this is still totally stupid, but it's like, oh, maybe we'll just bomb an airstrip just on the principle that, like, you can't use these weapons. And it is starting to get a little bit weird, like, why? I mean, they're horrible, but why do we fetishize it so much? Like, every faction there is killing so many innocent people with every means. I don't know why this stands out, but at any rate.
I think Obama actually had it right in supporting the Kurdish movement in Rojava with some sort of limited airstrikes. Like, I'm very afraid what's going to happen to the people there when the U.S. stops doing that. But also, I don't trust Trump to execute any of this well.
Yeah.
Never support military action by Donald Trump.
That should be that should be a foregone conclusion.
Right.
But I think there's really no evidence, historical evidence, that we are helpful in these situations. And there doesn't seem to be, outside of regime change, which does seem to be impossible from a practical level,
not gonna happen.
and not terribly justifiable on any other grounds in terms of like our making that decision. There doesn't seem to be any type of strategy here. Like, what is supposed to happen after this regime change? So it's I don't know. I maybe I'm projecting, but there does seem to be more skepticism in the media, and I can't tell if that's just because nobody trusts Donald Trump, or if it's just like people are starting to realize like it doesn't make sense to do this. I don't know.
Well, maybe it also even just what happened a year ago. He did do this. They did all embarrass themselves, and guess what? Here we are.
Yeah, they had a huge hard-on for war the last time he did that, and I hope they've learned something from it, but I don't know.
He has finally become president.
If people find value in sending a couple of missiles into the Mediterranean and saying that we struck Syria, I'm okay with that. If that will satiate the lust for war, then I'm okay with that.